In the previous episode of how to build a billion-dollar startup almost overnight, I talked about the element of speed. So if you have a graph or a market curve, as I've always shown you, let's call it market X. And on this side, you have size. As the market grows, what I discussed was that it doesn't matter where you are at on this curve, that you can apply speed into this curve and then basically come out with as many products as you can to dominate the marketplace. Build to order is different. It still has the components of speed within the business model, but you're looking at a market in a different way. And I think the best way to describe it is if I do the curve again. In fact, on build to order, you can be anywhere on the product lifecycle curve. You could be realistically, even when you look at the entire growth curve of the market, I would say that the place where you probably should not do build to order originally is the early phases of the market before the phase transition into the main market. So here you want to probably standardize the value proposition. Depending on, of course, it always depends on the market and the category, but if you have the system set up, if your business model is set up to do build to order from the beginning, then go for it. But in the initial phases of a market evolution, most likely you will want to standardize because there is some benefits originally as the market is evolving, is to have a standardized value proposition so that you don't have to spend too much time educating the consumer about the new category. So build to order is powerful because it builds on the speed components that I discussed earlier, but it goes beyond that. It's just a different mindset. And what's so cool about build to order is that it doesn't matter where you are in the category. In fact, a lot of times, if the product category is maturing, or let's say you're even here, or your category is declining, for whatever reason, if you incorporate build to order, then you should be able to expand on this category. And what do I mean by build to order? I'll give you a perfect example. In the late in the 70s and 80s, Toyota production system was implemented where in Japan, if you bought a Toyota, they could literally deliver it to you within 7 to 10 days. The irony is that the production system, so order to delivery, was only 2 days. But they counted for logistics and all that, so they would say basically 7 to 10 days. And of course, when we talk about build to order, basically you would order a car the way you want it, and then they would deliver it to you. But one of the components of build to order is really that there is some standardization in the base components of the product or value proposition, and then you're obviously customizing the additional components. So build to order, the way I want to make an example of it on the market curve is basically think of it as little dots, little product dots. So you're not really building the product until you get a customer order. Now there's a lot of benefits to that. So one of the things obviously that a huge issue today is cost. And so the principle has been that most of the American manufacturers would outsource their manufacturing outside of the country because there would be benefits of lower cost. But here's the irony. As the market or the product category evolves and matures, then there's a huge opportunity to incorporate build to order at the local, regional level, which is going to give you an advantage. The advantage is that your cost may increase, but your agility, your responsiveness, and of course personalization is going to give you a huge advantage. So by combining these with the cost element, Now you can give the consumer whatever they want at the lowest cost possible, personalized, custom tailored, and you're going to have an advantage, because if the rest of your competitors is outsourcing their manufacturing in Asia as an example, then by bringing in the personalization through build to order, it's going to give you a huge competitive advantage. Now, what categories could you do this with? Any category. So if you look at whatever the category, look for any product around you. If there's a component where the consumer has a desire to order a product based on their personal needs, then you might have an advantage if this type of a business model has not been incorporated within the industry sector. So when you look at build to order, just think of them as product cycles, PX, PY, PZ, PW, that you basically have not you have a base for each product or service that is modular, and then the rest of it is like Lego-like blocks that you customize according to the consumer needs. That's a very powerful value proposition. Now, like I said, this can be applied to anything, and I think a perfect example is ironically Chipotle. So when you go into Chipotle, the casual dining place, you're going through the assembly line. You, the consumer, your tastes are being assembled right there in front of you. So as you go through the assembly line, you're going to order, are you going to have flour tortillas? And then you're going to ask for beans. And you're going to ask for, whether you want a chicken, beef. And then here they're going to ask you whether you want some guacamole. But this is all being customized as you go through. So you could think of Chipotle as a build-to-order system according to your needs, and now you're not really you're not in a restaurant waiting to whatever your order was, you're waiting to get it delivered to you. So the difference in this case is that it's done in a single piece, continuous flow, and that's what gives you the power when it comes to build-to-order. So this is a very powerful value proposition, and if I can give you any advice on it, is that in order to do build to order, you have to study Toyota production system, or what I call Taiichi Shigeo Shingo production system, which is going to give you the power to develop products and produce products in relation to the order to delivery cycle much quicker, because your production cycle, P1 process to PX process, is much shorter than what the consumer wants. So in summary, if you're in an industry that is on this curve, and even if you're here, or even if you're at the top of the curve and the product life cycle seems like it's maturing or it's slowing down or decelerating, then if you incorporate build to order, there's your opportunity to build $1 billion startup almost overnight. And it's simple because it comes down to speed. If I'm a consumer and now I can personalize my offering or what I want, and now I can quickly have it delivered to me, you're going to have an incredible advantage over other competitors. So the combination of speed, the combination of build to order, the combination of utilizing the Toyota production system in every part of your process gives you that $1 billion advantage. Until next time.